Matthew chapter 26. So everything Jesus did was leading up to this moment. This is how it finally happened. When Jesus had finished all his teachings, he said to his disciples, "As you know, in 2 days it will be Passover. That's when the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." At that same time, the chief priests were getting together with the elders of the people in the official residence of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. They plotted together how to capture Jesus by some trick and kill him. "We better not try anything at the feast," they said. "We don't want people to riot." While Jesus was at Bethany in the house of Simon, known as the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster vial of extremely valuable ointment, and she poured it on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were furious. "What's the point of all this waste?" they said. "This could have been sold for a fortune, and the money could have been used to give to the poor." "Why make life difficult for the woman?" he said. "It's a beautiful thing that she's done for me. You always have the poor with you, don't you? But you don't always have me. When she poured this ointment on my body, you see, she did it to prepare me for my burial. I'm being serious. I'm telling you the truth. Wherever this gospel is announced in all the world, what she has just done will be told, and people will remember her." At that moment, one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests. "What will you give me," he said, "if I hand him over to you?" They settled the deal at 30 pieces of silver, and from that moment on, he was watching for an opportunity to betray him. On the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the disciples said to Jesus, "Where do you want us to get the Passover ready for you to eat it?" "Go into the city," he said, "to a certain man, and say to him, 'The teacher says my time is very close. I'm going to keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.'" So the disciples did as Jesus told them and got the Passover ready. When evening came, he settled down with the 12, and as they were eating, he said, "I'm telling you the truth. One of you will betray me." They were extremely upset about this and began to say one by one, "It's not me, is it, Master?" "It is one of those who's dipped his hand with me in the dish," Jesus replied. "Yes, one of those will betray me. The Son of Man is on his way as the Bible said it would happen, but it's miserable for the man who hands him over. It would be better for that man if he had never been born." At this statement, Judas, who was planning to betray him, said, "It isn't me, is it, teacher?" "So you say," Jesus replied. As they were eating, Jesus took some bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to the disciples. "Take it and eat it," he said. "This is my body." Then he took a cup, and after giving thanks, he gave it to them. "Drink this, all of you," he said. "This is my blood, the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. But let me tell you this, I will not drink any more from the fruit of this vine until that day when I drink it new with you in the kingdom of my Father." Then they sang a hymn and went to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You're all going to stumble and fall tonight because of me. This is what the Bible says. I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I'm raised up, I will go on ahead of you to Galilee." "Even if everyone else trips and falls," said Peter in reply to him, "I'm never going to do that." "I'm telling you the truth," said Jesus to him. "This very night, before the cock has crowed, you will have denied me 3 times. "Even if I have to die with you," said Peter, "I am not going to deny you." And all the disciples said the same thing. So Jesus went with them to the place called Gethsemane. "You sit here," he said to the disciples, "while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee with him and began to be very upset and distressed. "My soul is overwhelmed with grief," he said, "even to death. So stay here and keep watch with me." Then going on a little further, he fell on his face and prayed. "My Father," he said, "if it's possible, please let this cup go away from me. But not what I want, but what you want." He came back to the disciples and found them asleep. "So you couldn't even keep watch with me for a single hour?" he said to Peter. "Watch and pray so that you don't get pulled into this time of testing. The spirit is eager, but the body is weak." Again, for the second time, he went off and said, "My Father, If it's not possible for this to pass unless I drink it, let your will be done." Again he came and found them asleep. Their eyes were heavy. Once more he left them and went away. He prayed for the third time, using the same words again. Then he came back to the disciples. "You can sleep now," he said, "and have a good rest. Look, the time has come, and the Son of Man is given over into the hand of wicked people. Get up, let's be going. Look, here comes the one who's going to betray me." While Jesus was still speaking, there was Judas, one of the 12. He had come with a large crowd, with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and the elders of the people. The one who was intending to betray him gave them a sign. "The one I kiss, that's him. Grab hold of him." So he went up at once to Jesus and said, "Greetings, teacher," and kissed him. "My friend," said Jesus, "do what you've come to do." Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and arrested him. At that, one of the men with Jesus reached out his hand, pulled out his sword, and hit the high priest's slave, cutting off his ear. "Put your sword back where it belongs," said Jesus to him. "People who use the sword die by the sword. Don't you realize that I could call on my Father and have him send me more than 12 legions of angels just like that? But how can the Bible come true when it says that this has to happen?" At that time, Jesus said to the crowds, "Have you really come out here with swords and sticks to arrest me as if I were some kind of brigand? I sat there teaching in the temple every day and you didn't arrest me. But all this has happened so that the writings of the prophets would be fulfilled." Then all the disciples abandoned him and ran away. The people who had arrested Jesus took him off to Caiaphas, the high priest. The scribes and the elders had already gathered at his house. Peter, however, followed him at some distance, all the way to the high priest's residence. He went inside and sat with the servants to see how things would work out. The high priest and the whole council tried to produce false evidence against Jesus to frame a capital charge and have him killed. But even though they brought in plenty of lying witnesses, they couldn't find the evidence they wanted. Finally, 2 people came forward and declared, "This man said, 'I can destroy God's temple and build it again in 3 days.'" Then the high priest stood up. "Aren't you going to answer?" he said to him. "What are these people accusing you of?" But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I put you on oath before the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, God's Son." "You said the words," replied Jesus. "But let me tell you this, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his robes. "He's blasphemed," he said. "Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, you've heard his blasphemy. Here and now, what's your verdict?" "He deserves to die," they answered. Then they spat in his face and hit him. Some of them slapped him and said, "Prophesy for us, Messiah. Who is it that hit you?" Meanwhile, Peter was outside in the courtyard. One of the servant girls came up to him. "You were with Jesus the Galilean too, weren't you?" she said. He denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. He went out to the gateway. Another girl saw him and said to the people who were there, "This man was with Jesus the Nazarene." Once more he denied it, this time swearing, "I don't know the man." After a little while, the people standing around him came up and said to Peter, "You really are one of them. Look, the way you talk makes it obvious." Then he began to curse and swear, "I don't know the man." And then all at once, the cock crowed. And Peter remembered. He remembered the words Jesus had spoken to him. "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went outside and cried like a baby. This is the word of the Lord.